Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this overview of the Kindergarten Entry Assessment with a focus on the selected tool Teaching Strategies Gold. I'm Sean Ross. I'm the Deputy Associate Superintendent of Academic Standards at the Arizona Department of Education. And with me is Drew. Drew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. Hi, my name is Drew Senkar. I'm the Senior Manager for Partner Success on the Public Policy team with Teaching Strategies. Really excited to be here with all of you today.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to have you with us today. The Kindergarten Entry Assessment is new legislation for Arizona and is going to be an interesting new development for us. And so I'm so glad you're here to lend your expertise. So let's go ahead and jump in. And for those of you watching, thank you again for being with us and getting this overview on the Kindergarten Entry Assessment. This is sort of our first salvo in support. We're going to record this webinar and send it out to all of you to watch. And then we will have some follow-up webinars with more information, some places to ask and answer questions, and all kinds of wraparound supports to make sure this initiative rolls out very smoothly. So what is the Kindergarten Entry Assessment? Now, you'll hear me refer to it as the KEA quite a bit in this presentation. This was passed in the 2021 legislative session, and it was an amendment to Arizona Revised Statute 15701, and it called for the State Board of Education to adopt a kindergarten entry assessment. So a tool that would holistically assess children as they enter kindergarten on certain key domains of early learning to check kindergarten readiness, and for a number of reasons we'll discuss during this presentation. And the rules are pretty simple. The schools are to administer this kindergarten entry assessment within the first 45 days of school and the first 45 days of a new pupil joining that kindergarten cohort. So let's talk quickly about timeline before we get into the tool itself. And so again, the law was passed back in July of 2021. And between July of 2021 and March of 2022, the Arizona Department of Education, in conjunction with the State Board of Education, convened stakeholder groups. So we brought in folks from schools and districts across the state. We brought in early childhood experts, kindergarten teachers, administrators, and we talked about what the state would like to see, what schools would like to see in a kindergarten entry assessment. And we took all of that feedback and we recorded it and we kept it with us for the next phase of the project, because the funding arrived in March of 2022. And with that funding came the ability to move forward with this implementation. In May of 2022, we opened a request for proposals, and that's where you dictate what you're looking for from a specific assessment tool. Vendors apply, and then a vendor is selected. And we used that feedback from that statewide stakeholder group in order to shape what we were looking for a kindergarten entry assessment tool. So that request for proposal process was done over the course of a couple months. A tool was selected, and then as you saw in the legislation, it required that the State Board of Education approve that tool, and this was unanimously, the Teaching Strategies Gold was unanimously approved at the August 2022 meeting of the State Board of Education. So what does that mean going forward? So this year, because the funding came in a little bit later than expected, and because implementation is happening after we have already started the 2022-2023 school year, we spoke with our legislative friends, our state board staff, and our leadership, and the decision was made to make the 2022-2023 school year a baseline data year. So what that means is we are going to spend this year helping with the implementation of Teaching Strategies Gold, and Drew will talk about that a little bit more, getting student portfolios set up, getting teachers trained and administrators trained in the effective use of the tool, the effective use of a kindergarten entry assessment, a deeper understanding of formative assessment practices, and then how to use and act on that data. And you'll, as schools and teachers, you'll get into the tool, you'll use it. You'll collect some baseline data to get used to doing that. You'll submit it to ADE to get used to that process. And then next year, the 2023-2024 school year, will be the first year of full implementation. So it's really nice that we will have almost a year with the tool to learn, to get training, and to work out any issues that may arise with implementation before fully using the tool next year with all kindergarten students. Now, a little bit more detail about the logistics of the bill and the funding around it. The governor's office provided $1.5 million in funding for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, which covers the cost of the tool for every kindergarten student in the state and covers the cost of professional development and offerings that Teaching Strategies Gold will be making towards the field and will use to help build teacher capacity and use of the tool and effective use of the data provided by the tool. And Drew will talk about this a bit more, but Teaching Strategies Gold sets up student portfolios for each kindergarten student in the classroom to gather and reflect upon data. And then we're going to be providing, like, as I said, some key training in the key domains of early learning, which I'll talk about in just a moment, in early literacy, in the effective use of Teaching Strategies Gold as a kindergarten entry assessment, and then the effective use of that data in general. So I really just want to emphasize that one of the things we're really excited about with this particular initiative is we have time. We have time to roll it out. We have time to roll it out effectively, and we have time to roll it out with training and support so that teachers and schools feel best equipped to use this tool effectively and to gather and act upon data in a manner that really benefits student achievement. So a couple more logistical details. Again, as a reminder, the testing window for the first administration of the tool has to happen within the first 45 days of school, and then that data are sent to the department. There's no cost to LEAs. That's been covered by the governor's office. And each student will have a unique ID that will rest with them at their school. And so if a school decides to use this tool beyond kindergarten, and it has a possibility, it can be used in the K-3 space, then that ID would travel with them at their district. And then there's currently not an opt-out option. So all kindergarten students are to be assessed using this tool. So let's get to the why. The why is always the most important part, right? And let's talk about why a kindergarten entry assessment. Why is this important? And what this does is it evaluates the whole child and in a manner that we've not been equipped to do prior to the implementation of this legislation and the use of a tool like Teaching Strategies Gold. So we do have other legislation, and I'll talk about that in just a second, upon which students are screened for, say, literacy struggles in the first 3 weeks of school. And those tools are important and reading is vital, but it focuses on one element of student performance. The kindergarten entry assessment is really designed to focus on the whole child, on their physical development, their social emotional development, their cognitive development. And that's really vital because it's going to provide important data on students, where they are when they enter kindergarten, that we can use to look back on the effectiveness of their preschool programs. We can identify effective preschool programs and then promote the practices used within those effective programs. And then teachers and schools will have really effective and important data very early in the school year, which they can then use to help that student move forward. One of the reasons Teaching Strategies Gold was selected is that it's an ongoing progress monitoring tool. So even though it will be used for the first time in the first 45 days of school, it's not necessarily the last time. You can go in and use this tool to assess students in these domains multiple times over the course of a year, charting their development, charting their progress, and then receiving support from the tool itself on how to help students progress in these key domains. One of the reasons Teaching Strategies Gold was selected as the kindergarten entry assessment for Arizona is because it's aligned to Arizona's kindergarten academic standards, as well as Arizona's early learning standards and infant and toddler developmental guidelines. We are going to use this data to really gauge school readiness for incoming kindergarten students. And it'll be the first time that Arizona has ever had data like this. And so we're very excited about this, this initiative and the ability to get a real snapshot of where students are as they enter kindergarten. You know, we know that effective practices, the earlier you identify a student's needs and the more you target your instruction to those needs, the better that student's going to do. So again, very excited about this program, very excited about this data. Now, I just want to clarify one particular element. There is other legislation that takes place in the kindergarten space. One of those pieces of legislation is Move On When Reading, which is Arizona's K-3 reading legislation. And remember, as a reminder, it exists to provide early identification for struggling readers so that they receive targeted intervention in their areas of struggle so that they're reading at or above grade level by the end of 3rd grade. But again, as I said earlier, Move On When Reading is really focused on that sole skill set, reading, which is is vital to student achievement and vital to student success. But the KEA is focused on more than that. It's focused on a whole picture of the child. It really looks at a holistic snapshot of these key domains of early learning. Both tools and both pieces of legislation are all about early identification so that students can receive the supports they need in order to move forward. Move On When Reading impacts kindergarten through third grade. The KEA legislation is only for kindergarten, though again, that tool can be used beyond kindergarten. And then again, the Move On When Reading legislation has a requirement of triannual data submission, where the requirement for the KEA is a single data submission within the first 45 days of school. So one key piece of the Teaching Strategies Gold tool that made it the selected tool for the kindergarten entry assessment is that it is not a typical assessment tool as we often think of them at the state level or at the school and district level, where an assessment like a statewide assessment, for example, is given once and the scores come, and that's sort of the involvement in that process. The Teaching Strategies Gold tool is really most effectively an ongoing progress monitoring tool. So it looks at these key domains of early learning for students, and again, gives teachers a way to codify those 10,000 decisions a teacher makes in a day, those observations that you make as a teacher in the moment of student learning. And I think this is really a key point, because we understand that this new initiative is added to an already very heavy workload for kindergarten teachers and may feel like one more thing. And we really want to emphasize that this is not interrupting instruction, and in fact is not interrupting student learning, because it's the capturing and codifying of student learning as it's occurring. So this tool is really designed for teachers to be able to make an observation that they would make anyway as a professional, notice where a student is in a specific area, or maybe even in a group of specific areas, and then capture that data quickly in order to have the ability to chart it over the course of time and then reflect upon it, both as a teacher and with administration and with a family. So that's a really key element to the Teaching Strategies Gold tool that we think makes it a different type of assessment than you traditionally see in the K-12 space. And then one of the factors that we're very excited about, and we think as teachers jump into the tool over the course of this baseline data year, they're really going to find valuable, is this really spectacular reporting feature in Teaching Strategies Gold that will print out updates, checkpoints for students at specific moments, and will provide, again, charts of that student's progress as the data has been entered in by the teacher, and does so in a manner that is particularly friendly for parents, especially for parents of young children, showing them how their student is developing in each of these key domains, really giving them a snapshot of how their student is developing as a child from a holistic point of view, and then again, providing teacher strategies for how to promote even further learning for those students. So it's an element that we thought really separated the tool in the RFP process. Now, I've talked a lot about these key domains of early learning. I'm going to go through them very quickly. Some of the training that we will be providing over the course of this baseline data year is going to focus really heavily on these domains of early learning. And so you're going to find that you'll have access to training in each of these areas, both through Teaching Strategies Gold and through the Arizona Department of Education. And so I'm not going to do a huge dive in today. Again, today is really a big overview, but know that these trainings are coming, and we'll be announcing them, through the channels through which we announce our trainings. And the focus of Teaching Strategies Gold, that what is assessed, where the students are evaluated for their current progress and their progress over time, really falls under physical and motor development, cognitive development, social emotional learning, language and literacy, and then math and numeracy. And just to talk a little bit about each of these areas, I'm going to focus first on physical and motor development, where a student is going to demonstrate traveling skills, demonstrate bouncing skills, and demonstrate gross motor strength and coordination. And you might be asking yourself, well, what does that look like? So on this slide, you'll notice there's a little snapshot of Teaching Strategies Gold of how you actually measure and chart student progress. And you'll see that there are going to be indicators of what the student is doing. So you're looking for student behavior that's demonstrating the specific area of focus. These colors correspond to age and grade bands. And so you'll look for the appropriate color, you'll mark where the student is, and then you'll be able to see, oh, where is that student, or where are students who are this age and this grade level, usually in this area, compared to widely held expectations. And you'll be able to chart a student's progress over time. So we're going to look at another element, cognitive development, which really looks at demonstrating positive approaches to learning, remembering and connecting experiencing, using classification skills, using symbols and images to represent something not present. And again, here's a little snapshot of how data like that are entered into Teaching Strategies Gold. There's a focus on social emotional learning, how a student regulates their own emotions and behaviors, how they establish and sustain positive relationships, and how they participate cooperatively and constructively in group situations. This is an area that we are really excited about. And this is an area that we think separates the kindergarten entry assessment from other types of assessments that are occurring in those K-3 spaces, and really actually the K-12 space. We have a lot of requests at the department for ways for teachers to measure and evaluate a student for social emotional learning skills, to chart where they stand against their peers, and how to chart their progress over time. And so this tool is going to be a really effective tool for teachers in order to establish those social emotional skills, where a student currently stands and where a student has progressed over the course of the year. And this is, again, an area that we're very excited about, because we know the importance of social emotional learning, that it is an amplifier. A student with strong social emotional learning skills is doing better in math and language arts and all of their other subject areas. And so this was a key component. We're also going to look at language and literacy. Language really focusing on listening to and understanding complex language, using language to express needs. Literacy is more about those foundational skills of reading that you see more spelled out in the Move On When Reading legislation. We'll have the real focus on phonological awareness, on phonics, on the connections of letter and sounds, and word recognition, and then moving into alphabetical knowledge, and then reading and writing skills. Now, there's also a focus on math and numeracy at the kindergarten level, because we know those are core skills as well, including using numbers and operations and comparing and measuring. So talked a lot about those key domains that are examined through the Teaching Strategies Gold tool that are part of the kindergarten entry assessment. Two other elements that I think are really important to highlight is that the tool itself is an effective it's an effective asset for English language learners, because it has some unique qualities that make it effective for teachers to codify as a student demonstrates progress in listening to and understanding English, and then as a student demonstrates progress in speaking English. And so students who are identified as English language learners, you can do that in the tool, and then you'll have access to these other places to chart this area of growth. And this is so important, as Arizona has such a large and unique English language learner population, and this is another way to measure their progress and meet their unique needs. And then equally as important, Teaching Strategies Gold makes their reporting features available in English and Spanish, so that families have equal access to what their students are doing in class, how they're learning, how they're progressing, really honoring that home language of that family. And then Teaching Strategies Gold works particularly well with students with disabilities, in that it is an ongoing progress monitoring tool that really demonstrates a whole picture of that child, shows their progress over time, and provides holistic data for a child study team if a student is referred to special education. Again, it is an excellent ongoing progress monitoring tool, which can align to the goals in a student's IEP, and then it aligns to OSEP, the Office of Special Education Program Outcomes, and is recognized as an effective tool for measuring progress for students with disabilities, as well as general education students. Again, I want to emphasize that during this buffer year, we are here to support you. We understand that this is new. We understand that this type of tool and this type of assessing might be unique and new for you. And so again, we're going to be providing multi-pronged training for the field, including in using the tool effectively, how to look at the data, how to use the data effectively. What does it mean to progress monitor over time? We're going to be providing training on those domains of early learning. And then we are working with partners in the Region 15 Comprehensive Center to provide training on formative assessment. What does it mean to elicit evidence of student understanding or student performance in an area, capture that evidence, evaluate where they are, and then adjust instruction accordingly in the moment in order to meet the needs of that student. So a lot of training coming your way in multiple modes. I say again, in person, virtual, asynchronous, because we know that teachers and schools have different needs during the school year, and we want to make sure we can meet those needs as best as we are best equipped. There are some resources available if you want to learn a little bit more. In particular, you can visit the Arizona Department of Education kindergarten website, where we are going to have this recorded webinar posted, as well as further recorded webinars. I'm going to kick it to Drew in just a moment here, but we were just talking before this recording that he's actually going to be doing a follow-up recording on the real logistics of Teaching Strategies Gold. We thought it would be best to break those two up a little bit so the viewing experience is a little bit better. But we are here, and we are here to support the effective implementation of the kindergarten entry assessment and the selected tool by the state board, Teaching Strategies Gold. So Drew, I am going to stop sharing my screen and give you a chance to talk about TSG.
Thanks, Sean. I'm going to share my screen here. You can give me a thumbs up and you can see it. Awesome. What an exciting time to be a kindergarten teacher in the state of Arizona, right? Like, this is exciting. This is awesome. Teaching Strategies is super excited to partner with the state of Arizona and support the work of so many educators inside the state of Arizona. But the purpose of me today is to really kind of give you the flyby of what is Teaching Strategies Gold. Teaching Strategies Gold is part of the My Teaching Strategies platform. And what is the My Teaching Strategies platform? That is the online platform that teachers will use, commonly referred to as Gold, in the state of Arizona and across the country. We're going to get to the nuts and bolts of getting yourselves and children into the platform in a subsequent webinar, as Sean had noted. But I just wanted to take a moment to share with you what My Teaching Strategies is all about and what it provides. It is a full ecosystem of supports, resources, tools, insights, all for early childhood. That means for you as an educator, possibly for the first time, we'll have all the tools and supports to collect the insights of a child's knowledge, skills, and abilities across those 6 domains of learning that Sean mentioned before. Again, that social, emotional, physical, language, literacy, cognitive, math. And in addition to that, the tool provides insights to inform your instruction. I've gathered this information. Where do I go from here? And provides opportunities for you as an educator to grow and develop your own knowledge, either around KEA specifically, or just in general, some early childhood pedagogical knowledge. It also provides a means of communicating either progress or seeking insights from families, sharing those updates, really building that relationship between home and classroom, and so much more. So what is Gold? Gold is a formative assessment. What is a formative assessment? A formative assessment is a number of things that I'm just, again, going to go over at a high view. As Sean has already noted, there will be subsequent webinars and subsequent trainings and supports for really what is formative assessment, how to do formative assessment. Formative assessment really captures those in the moment opportunities of knowledge, skills, and abilities that teachers are already doing on a daily basis. You are engaged in that way. But if we were going to define formative assessment, we would say at Teaching Strategies that it's a process where several things happen. You've got evidence of learning, you've got feedback about that learning, and then a plan is created based on that evidence and that feedback to bring that learner closer to their goals. In simple terms, formative assessment is the kind of information that an educator uses to inform their interactions with children and students in their classroom. It gives them the information then at the individual child level and at the class level and the whole child level that allows the teacher to make decisions that will allow them to tailor their instruction to more closely meet the needs of that individual, of that whole class, of those students. Not only is GOLD a formative assessment, but GOLD is an authentic assessment. It's whole child, it's observation-based. You've heard both Sean and I mention this already, but it provides the ability to inform planning and instruction. It is not just a moment in time. It is a composite, a collection of all the work that teachers are already doing. It is not, as Sean said, that one more thing. It's a part of the work that you're already doing. It's just an understanding of what that is. You've just seen much of this information here. So my apologies if you feel like you're starting to be browbeaten by it, as Sean has just noted. But GOLD is a formative assessment tool and an authentic assessment tool. And this formative assessment tool is appropriate for individualized instruction, for children with those additional support needs, for children with enrichment needs, for those who are dual or multi-language learners. For us, this is what formative assessment looks like on a daily basis. There's a period of observation, a period of reflection, and then a period of responding. Educators engage in the formative assessment process every day. Sometimes they're responding to those observations of children's strengths. Sometimes we are tactically adjusting plans based on what we're seeing in the classroom. And then we are responding in our future plans. So you've seen a little bit of this next slide already based on some of what Sean had shared. But GOLD is made up of 23 objectives across those 6 domains, some of which are further broken down into dimensions of a larger skill, each of which have an associated progression of development and learning, somewhere between 4 and 9 of those indicators. GOLD is a seamless assessment system, as Sean noted, for use with children from birth all the way through 3rd grade. So while we know the focus at the moment is this KEA, is this kindergarten space, it can absolutely be used beyond that. Each of the children in the picture that you see here represents a different year of life or age or class grade. And knowing how children typically develop and learn is an important part of being a responsive teacher. The color bands clarify expectations and practices that are developmentally appropriate for that age or class grade. And then the progressions enable you to understand how children's observational knowledge, skills, and abilities relate to those objectives, and really also help you to predict some of what the likely steps might be. So you'll see in front of you, you have red, orange, and yellow. Those each represent a year of life for the first 3 years. You have green, blue, and purple. Those represent preschool 3, pre-K 4, and kindergarten classes. And then you have pink, silver, and brown, and those represent the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades, respectively. Next, I just want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into a progression that Sean had shared previously. You'll see a number of arrows on this screen, as well as a number of different words. You're going to see things like objective, dimension, indicator, level, examples. And then across the bottom, you're going to see that colored band again that provides a little bit of anchoring for widely held expectations based on either that year of life or that age or class grade. So you may remember that I've said that each dimension has an associated progression with indicators. These even numbers here are indicators. Some of those indicators may start at birth, while other of those don't begin until a later age. You can see we have a not yet here for those that maybe don't begin until a later time. You'll notice that we also have those color-coded age bands, which indicate the widely held expectations for the varying ages or class grades. You can see how some of those colored bands overlap. That tells us that this skill or behavior takes time to develop, and the development happens at both of the ages. You'll also notice that some of the bands stretch across multiple indicators. This tells us that there are several key shifts in the way development occurs over the course of that age or year or class. You'll also notice that some of the colored bands are shorter and have heavy overlap. This tells us that the children need a lot of time and experience to develop that skill or behavior. You may also notice that not every space has an indicator. We would call these in between, and they are designed to capture that emerging knowledge or skill or behavior. We're going to go into far more detail in those trainings that Sean had noticed. And at the end, we have a slide here that gives you access or the quick link to the Teaching Strategies support portal, where you can find a lot more information on this if you want to go ahead and get a jump start on it. But rest assured, we will make sure that you have all of the information that you need here. So we also know that a child's development and learning may not always fall within widely held expectations. So having this progression in front of you really allows you to identify where that child is, whether they fall within that colored band or not. And the language of the indicators, you'll note here, is asset-based, because we always want to focus on what a child can do. And the asset-based approach is part of what makes this tool appropriate for all children, whether it be children, again, who need the additional support, children who perhaps need some enrichment, or again, those multi-language learning children. So what is successful formative assessment? What does it do? Well, it can help an educator to identify their blind spots. It allows you to more deeply understand yourself as an educator, as well as those children that you are serving over a period of time. It supports the authentic engagement with children. And as I think Sean noted, it doesn't pause learning, but it captures the work and those interactions that teachers are already having with those children and their classes each day. It provides the opportunities for observation and reflection, and it encourages acknowledgement of those successes and helps us to recognize those opportunities. Again, here are those resources. Should you be so inclined to visit those ahead of time. The first one here is the Teaching Strategies support portal. If you've ever talked with somebody from Teaching Strategies before, they've probably referred to that as Google for Gold, because that is how it works. There are so many questions that you can ask in there and so many answers. Getting started, it is also multimodal. So whether you prefer to read, you prefer to watch a video, you'd like to see a recorded webinar, all of those are available from within that space. And then there's also the Teaching Strategies main website, as well as the research site listed in there, should you want to do some additional reading. So again, we are so excited to partner with you and looking forward to supporting teachers and the children of Arizona. Sean, thank you again for allowing me to help support on this webinar. And thank you, Arizona educators, for allowing us to support the important work that you are all doing each and every day.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. And I just want to reiterate for those who are watching the timeline. So we will be sending out this recorded webinar early the week of September 26th, and to all schools that serve kindergarten students across the state. This webinar will help kind of inform, hey, here's what's happening in this KEA space, and then Teaching Strategies Gold will be reaching out. Your team will reach out in the following weeks, and over the course of end of September into October, we'll work to get schools signed up and into Teaching Strategies Gold and setting up portfolios and getting to really understand the tool. And then once we have a critical mass of schools registered and up and running, we are going to hit the ground running with training. The reason we're doing the implementing of the tool first is the trainings require you to get into the tool and use it. So it makes more sense to start there, but that will all be coming. And then we'll be offering trainings all year and through, all school year into the summer, so that we can get everybody as comfortable with the tool as possible, using it to gather authentic data to help support student learning. And I just want to reiterate again what Drew said. that this isn't just another assessment. This is not a traditional assessment where learning is interrupted in order to pause, and that has its place. This really is the capturing of the evidence of learning and codifying it in a tool that allows the teacher to then later reflect. So we're very excited. We know this is new, and anything new can be a little intimidating, but we are here to support you. This is just the beginning. This is just our way of letting you know that this is coming and that we're here. And like I said, and like Drew said, we'll be following up with a number of communications, webinars, direct outreach, and training so that everybody is comfortable to be up and running fully for next school year. So thank you again. If you have any further questions, you can visit our webpage, and then we will be in touch in the next couple of days. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for all that you do for Arizona's kids.
Thank you.